Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Rutherford County School Board meeting, August 12th. Second thing on the agenda here is the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would, please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we do our moment of silence, we recognized our staff, employees, contractors the other night. Tonight, I'd like for us to focus on our parents. I know there's a lot of anxiety out there, and rightfully so. But let's please keep our parents, our students, in prayer. We need to kind of lift them up, and hopefully we have a good, safe school year this year. Please join me. Thank you. All right, number 4, approval agenda. Do we have any questions on the agenda? All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Approval of consent agenda. Is there any questions on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Okay, Ms. Johnson. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we do have some visitors tonight. First one up would be Heather Cecil. If you would, please come up and state your name and address, please.
My name is Heather Cecil. I'm at 195 Jefferson Pike in Laverne. And I'm here to ask that masks be required at schools. Fox News reported that among school-aged children in Tennessee, COVID cases in the last 14 days jumped from 864 to 5,188 as of August 6th. AP News reported on the 3rd that experts say the Delta variant spreads more easily because of mutations that make it better at latching onto the cells in our bodies. We can be contagious with the virus before we have symptoms, over which time we can unwittingly make dozens of other people sick, and these new strains are harming our children. The CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, recently confirmed just how much more contagious the Delta virus is. More than twice as many as the original strain can be affected. The Tennessean reported on August 5th, Health Commissioner Dr. Lisa Piercy said the accelerated spread of the Delta variant, on top of an unexpected rise of an unrelated respiratory disease, RSV, is on pace to completely fill the children's hospitals across the state by the end of next week. Children aged 10 and below now account for more than 10% of all new coronavirus infections, one of the highest rates of any point during the pandemic. And all school-aged children now account for 27% of new daily cases as of this week. During the first 3 days of this school year, 25 Williamson County elementary students have contracted COVID-19, according to Superintendent Jason Golden. That's 25 kids in 3 days. And children have already died, and others are on ventilators, and all of it is preventable, says Alan Levine, CEO of Ballad Health Hospitals in Northeast Tennessee. Due to the circulating and highly contagious Delta variant, CDC recommends universal indoor masking by all students aged 2 and older, staff, teachers, and visitors to K through 12 schools, regardless of vaccination status, as well as temperature screening. This isn't like wearing a seatbelt. It doesn't just protect you, because The mask does more to protect others from what the wearer might be breathing out. So the argument of, if you're scared, then make your child wear one, but leave mine alone, that doesn't work here. If we could do it when our children were in less danger last year to protect us adults, then we have to do it now when their own health is under attack. Tennessee House Speaker Cameron Sexton has voiced complaints about schools even moving to a mask mandate, and I'm here to say that he should not sway our decision to take care of our babies. Thank you.
Right, next is Chris Littleton. If you please come up, state your name and address, please.
Hey, Chris Littleton, 702 Sergio Avenue. I have 3 kids in Rutherford County Schools. Welcome to the new school year. It's a reintroduction from me to you guys. Last couple times I've been here, I shared community survey results across party lines, showing that parents are, the whole community likes parents' choice on masks. But I'm not really going to talk about masks today. Just remind you, this is the last time that we kind of all convened. At that time, parents had met at my house, and we discussed our concerns about what was happening in Rutherford County schools. And during our brief experience last spring, it really became crystal clear to us that individual parents didn't have much of a voice in the system, which was pretty disappointing to us. In fact, we learned what the dominant voice really was teachers' unions that were driving a lot of narrative in the board, and therefore the policies that the board was adopting. We've repeatedly watched as union talking points became form emails and were repeated verbatim, both in the board and then also online through social media. And we saw local political parties also took part in this process. This, from our perspective, was special interest-driven politics at its worst. It's not a good thing that that's happening. It's being manipulated in that way. So after a number of frustrating interactions, basically those initial parents decided to form a group that I'm just announcing to you guys today, kind of a reintroduction, and it's called Rutherford Students First. And the goal of me coming here tonight is really just to ensure I want to have the lines of communication open between all of us introducing this organization, because here's what we plan to do. One, we don't want to repeat last year, because I didn't think the lines of communication were great last year, so we want to improve those. We also don't want an escalation like that we saw in Williamson County this week, which I'm sure everybody's seen those videos, and nobody wants to see a repeat of that. This week, we were asked to certainly start a pressure campaign with you guys and get involved and push really hard, and I don't think that's a good way to start a school year. I think the best way to start a school year is to have an introduction, to restart a relationship, so that's what I'm here to do. It's clear that from the work session notes that I saw this week that you guys are interested in doing the right things for students to start the year. I think that you guys are very honest in how the policies last year inhibited communication for students, therefore inhibited learning, inhibited education, and the outcomes that we saw. And we're all disappointed, and I think anybody's happy with the test scores and what we're going to be talking about tonight. So to start the year, there are a lot of parents that are very nervous and very anxious, as the chairman just pointed out. But I believe that, this is the time to start a good, productive relationship. So here's what Rutherford Students First plans to do over the course of the next year. We're going to have representatives in every single school. We're also going to have representatives that are going to be direct connections to you guys over the course of the next few months. And so we're bringing those individuals together. We're hopefully coming up very, very, very close. We're going to have cross 1,000 people here very soon, 1,000 parents that are involved, and we're going to start making introductions to you guys and getting involved and starting those relationships. And I can't make it any more clear than I can say it right now. We are 100% a nonpartisan group. We are not connected to any political party. We don't wish to be connected to any political party. Just here to facilitate good relationships with the parents and the community. Thanks so much.
Next, Erica Kasher.
Hi, I'm Erica Kasher. I live at 1027 New Eames Drive in Murfreesboro. I'm a registered nurse. I have been since 2006. I just wanted to discuss, as other people, mask mandates. I'm concerned about mandating them. I saw that in Williamson County, obviously they did. My concern is that parents who are worried, obviously they can utilize your robust distance learning platform, or they can send their children with masks on if they so choose. COVID obviously is real. As a healthcare provider, I'm aware of that, but it's been used to take away our individual liberties over the last year. The entire reason for the masks was the PCR tests. With false positives, they showed asymptomatic spread, but that has since been debunked. There was a study of 10 million people in China that showed no asymptomatic spread, among other studies as well. We do not mask for the flu, which is more deadly to children. In the 2018 to 2019 flu season, in ages 0 to 17, there were 477 deaths from the flu. That was in one flu season. In 2 seasons worth of COVID, we have had 349 children die. Obviously, always tragic, but at the same time, we have to look at the greater good here. Masks are harmful to children. They've actually done a study, they took some masks in Florida. They sent them to a lab. The children had only worn them for 8 hours and they were clean. They found 11 different pathogens that were attached to those masks. They became vectors, and those kids were breathing in that stuff all day long. COVID has a 99.995% recovery rate in children. Even the Delta variant at this point has not been proven to be more deadly to children. Masks are harmful physically, and we don't know the psychological effects that this is going to have to children in the future. That being said, again, I am not going to be one to say that parents can't choose masks, but I do feel like that is a personal choice as a parent that has to be left up to us. And there are other alternatives for people who choose to be afraid of I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous. At any rate, if parents are worried, they have the option to wear the mask or use distance learning. I would like to end with a quote from Benjamin Franklin. "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." I'm willing to fight for my children. Thank you.
Geneva Cook.
Good evening. Geneva Cook, 3956 Blaze Drive, Rutherford County teacher and president of REA. Throughout the summer, teachers and students were cautiously hopeful for a more normal school year. Many teachers have been vaccinated and felt relief at not wearing the masks. However, as we finish the first full week of school, cases of COVID have started to rise again. It's disappointing, but it is the truth. We're especially concerned about 3 things. Number 1, the elementary school students who cannot be vaccinated. We need to protect them as much as possible. Number 2, there seem to be little to no protocols in place at any level. We understand it's best for students to be in school, but what will the consequences be of having so few mitigation measures in place? We also know that there are breakthrough COVID cases happening to the vaccinated. We can clean, but social distancing is almost impossible with all of the students back in school. So the only measure that may help is the masking. Number 3, the teachers that I have spoken to are thankful that you approve the 5 COVID days if they are contact traced at work. But is that enough? I worry about new teachers who have not been able to build up a lot of days, or for example, teachers who had to use all of their days for maternity leave. If they contract COVID or must quarantine, it could be devastating to them financially. Please consider reinstating the telework policy for teachers who test positive or must quarantine. None of these decisions are easy, but we must, as a district, deeply consider the health and well-being of all. The pandemic is not over, and we must not pretend that it is. Thank you.
Dr. Steve Murphy. Please state your name and address, please.
Dr. Steve Murphy, 4528 Tomby Court, Murfreesboro. I'm here to speak in favor of the Memorandum of Agreement proposal that's before the board tonight. I prepared some notes here as a statement, but I think seeing that our opposition is not here, I'll just yield and be available for questions if anyone on the board has questions for me.
Thank you. Caleb Tidwell.
Hey, Caleb Tidwell, 3029 Schoolside Street, and I would like to start off my time with a prayer. Father, we just ask, Lord, that you would be in this place, that your peace would break all the tension, Lord, that's here, just knowing that these people are making decisions for our children. And Lord, that we're putting that in your hands. Father, I ask that you would just give them guidance, let them lean on you. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. What I'd like to speak up about, I know that you've already made the decision on masking, as far as no masking, but then I noticed that Williamson County also did that not too long ago, and then they reversed course with a special meeting and changed their decision. So I would like just to make a point that's already kind of been made here, is that there's not really any evidence to suggest that, one, that there's a high transmissibility between students, and that there's no severe cases or deaths. It's not to say that there's none, but that it's very, very low, like the lady before me spoke. The CDC has many studies on this, one in Wisconsin, where they found out the transmission rate between students was 3.7%, which was way different than the community outside of the school walls, which was between 7 and 40%. That's their numbers, not mine. And the student ratio transmissibility between the student and the teacher was 0. They did another study in Atlanta. There were 9 different clusters that broke out. Out of those 9 clusters, only 8 of those clusters were educator to educator transmission. Only 1 was student to educator. Johns Hopkins just came out with a recent study where they studied deaths in all of the 48,000 kids that had COVID between April to August 2020. Now, out of those students those kids that they tested, 48,000, out of those, they found that all of them, all, had an underlying condition. Now, if you have to weigh the risk and the reward of the decisions that you make as an adult, whether or not you get vaccinated, you have the ability to get vaccinated, and supposedly this vaccination is going to help you have lower symptoms, less chance of death, less severity. For a child, if you have a child with an underlying condition, you have options. There are options that you can do. You can do student learning. You can keep your student back. There's options. We learned this last year. We have options on the table for those. That's no reason to take away freedom from the rest of us because of that. Masks, they don't work. I'll give you a good example. We'll look at, I only got 25 seconds. I'm trying to hurry here. But look at Israel. Israel, very restrictive. Locked down like crazy. Had an indoor mask mandate for months and months. They cut off their mandate. They had to reinstate it 10 days later because they had a surge in cases. Sweden never had a mask mandate, not once. Very low restrictive lockdowns. They are not suffering. Their 7-day average deaths is 0 right now. Totally different. Masks don't work. Ask you to hold the ground. Thank you.
Moving on to number 7.
All right, number 7, the 2021-22 Director of Schools Performance Evaluation Instrument found on tab 2.
All right, we had a lot of discussion on this the other night. Is there any other questions, any other discussion we need to have tonight? Okay. So do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that there are some adjustments that need to be made. Item number 6, the weighted section averages will be for Appendix A, 25%, Appendix B, 25%, and Appendix C, 25 or 50% rather. I'd also like to add in that motion that all evaluations will be signed by board members, that the Appendix A will be done confidentially and by mail through the TSBA.
Heard the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I'm assuming that Ms. Hopkins will amend that motion to include what Ms. Johnson added to it, correct? Because the wording of the motion needs to be clear based on the additions.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Number 8.
All right, we're going to go over some data that we received from the State Department here recently. The embargo has been lifted I'd like to thank all the teachers and administrators and specifically the students, and also I'd like to give a shout out to our parents. You know, we had quite a few that stayed on distance learning all year, and they trusted us to bring their kids back in order to take the test, because we were under the requirement that if 80% of our students did not take the test, then we would be designated as a system that was, you know, would be punished for that. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate all those that handled that. The scores that we'll be looking at, you know, we will first start off and talk about proficiency levels. First of all, if you're looking at the second column there, of course, we have the subject is mathematics. The grade is third grade. We've got what's called below grade level. We have what's called approaching grade level. We have what's called meets grade level. We refer to it as on track, and state refers to it that way. And then we have mastered. And then when you take the percentage that was on track and mastered, then you end up what's called our success rate. Now, as you can see in the third grade there, and I'd use this as a frame of reference to compare us to the state, we are obviously, that's not what we do in Rutherford County. We do not compare ourselves to the state. Our expectations are much higher than the state. And we surpassed every one of those in mathematics, grades 3 through 8. So kudos to that, but we still have a lot of work to do, much work to do. And one of the things I will tell you, what I have seen in our classes so far in our schools is excitement. You know, I've seen a lot of excitement. It started last Sunday when we all had the opportunity to go out to Plainview, one of our newest elementary school, actually our 50th school, and the excitement that was going on there. So one of the things I will say is there is an excitement in the air. So if you go to the next slide, this is our ELA, English Language Arts. The same thing. If you'll look at that, the blue is the state performance, the beige, or in this case the yellow, is our performance. And as you can see, we surpassed the state. But once again, it's not the state that we are looking at. We are looking at our own performance. So that's what we'll be going into in our next few slides. All right, this is the EOC comparison scores. This is from 18-19, which was 2 years ago, how we scored, and for 2021, where we are. As you can see, in the 18-19 for English 1, we 37.2% were what we refer to as mastered or on track, and it's referred to as success rate. In English, excuse me, I may have said English 2 on that one, but English 2 is 50.6%, Integrated 1, 27.9%, Integrated 2, 37.8%, and Integrated 3, 28.7%. So fast forward to this year. English 1, we actually grew a little bit. I don't understand that, but we grew a little bit. We still have a long ways to go. English 2, we dropped off by 4.6%. Integrated 1, we dropped off by 10.9%. Integrated 2, 10.7%. And Integrated 3, 10.7%. These are significant deficits in learning. Now, I will say this, going back to that slide, I will say this, we have the ability to, in the next few years, to accelerate this learning. We have that ability. We have instructional staff, we have teachers that are doing a fabulous job. I'll just harken back to this summer in our accelerated learning programs. Once again, we had over 6,000 kids in our buildings, and they were doing a phenomenal job. But we do have some challenges ahead. Now move to the next slide. Here we have the TCAP grades 3 through 8 comparison. As you can see, third grade ELA in 18-19 was 40%. In fourth grade, it was 38.4%. Fifth grade, 38.9%. Sixth grade, 42.9%. Seventh grade, 42.1%. In 8th grade, 33%. Now, go down to the bottom there, and you can see the deficits that we have. In ELA, we decreased by 4%. In 4th grade ELA, it was only 0.4%. In 5th grade ELA, it was 3.9%. 6th grade ELA, 5.9%. And significantly dropped in 7th grade of 8.1%. Finishing up in 8th grade at, we reduced it by 5%. Now keep in mind, this was 2 years ago. During that 2 years, we actually in March of 13th of 2020, the governor closed the schools. We've tried to provide instruction as best as possible. Along that time, we opened up in our school year in the fall of 2020. And we faced some challenges there. Quite frankly, at one time we had 40% of our student population that were in distance learning. There is a correlation. Not everyone learns well in distance learning. In fact, I don't think it was built for that capacity. Obviously, we have a thriving virtual school right now. Ideally, we would like to have somewhere around 1,500 in there. I think right now we have 500, Dr. Sullivan. So there is a place for that type of learning and instruction. Go to the next slide. All right, these were our math scores. Okay, once again, this is our 3rd grade through 8th grade. In 1819, we had in 3rd grade we had 54% success rate. In 4th grade, we had a 56.4% success rate. In 5th grade, 56.7. 6th grade, 45.9. 7th grade, 39.3, and 8th grade, 28%. Now, you can see below, we had some significant deficits in some of those areas. For example, in 3rd grade math this year, lost 8 percentage points. In 4th grade math, 13.4 percentage points. 5th grade, 17.7. 6th grade, 4.9. 7th grade, 7.3. And 8th grade, 5.8. Now, my question would be, as a parent and as a grandparent specifically, because I have a 3rd grader in our system as a grandparent, is what are we doing to recover this learning loss? Well, we are actually going to be providing some assistance during the school year. That will be worked out soon and will be provided to our parents. Am I right about that instructional department? They've been working feverishly to make sure that we have these opportunities. One of the things we do know is that the more opportunities we have and time that we have to do this, it's important. That span of 3 years is going to be very critical for not only the Rutherford County school system, but for the state of Tennessee, and not only that, but the nation. It is imperative what can occur in our country if we continue down the road of this deficit. So we as educators know that there's nothing more important than our children. We want them in a safe environment, and we want to be able to provide them with what our mission statement says up here, opportunities, to grasp tomorrow's opportunities. In order to do that, we have to prepare them for those opportunities. Next slide, please. All right, our subgroup, this is where what you would refer to as our at-risk kids, not necessarily, but it's our subgroup. We do a comparison here of ELA to all grades and all students, and as you can see, our success rate did take a deficit there. Then you start looking at our blacks, our black, Hispanic, Native Americans, our economically disadvantaged, our ELs, and our students with disabilities. Now, we were already behind the 8 ball with our students with disabilities prior to the pandemic. We are significantly behind the 8 ball now. Now, I will say this, taking into account some things as we look at the data so that you can make sure you can make a reference point. Keep in mind that the announcement was made prior to testing that students would be held harmless for their scores unless the score helped them. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't all true, because it is. There's a lot of truth here. But keep in mind, there's this thing called motivation and effort. So it could be skewed. I mean, it's like any data. Data can be skewed. All right, next slide, please. This is our math. Same trends, very significant trends, very concerning trends. But once again, we're working to catch this back up. It's not going to be a 1 year. It's not going to be a 2 year. It's going to be at least 3 years. All right, next slide. All right, this is when we put them all together. When we put all the success rate of ELA and math together. As you can see there, once again, it's a little bit smaller. However, it's still significant. So my whole point on the data is it's telling us a story. It may not be a complete story, but it's telling us a story that we have some deficits in learning with our students. Next slide, please. All right. Any questions? Once again, one of the things we've even seen, and I'm going to pass this out to you here before you leave tonight, where we do a comparison of our systems to systems like us. Now, quite frankly, I'm talking about Knox, I'm talking about Hamilton, I'm talking about Montgomery. We did better than them, most of them. But are we comparing ourselves to others, or are we trying to recapture this learning loss? Because each one of our kids, keep in mind, I have a third grader. Some of you have grandchildren in the system. It's important. Young kids, it's important. Now, and like I said, there is a place for virtual learning, but nothing can replace what takes place in that classroom every day, not only with that teacher. Here's one of the things we forget. It's that interaction with their peers. I go in a classroom and I'm looking at good instruction taking place. I don't look as what so much as the teacher's doing, no offense to my teachers, okay? I'm looking at what those students are doing with one another. What are they sharing with one another? What does that learning look like, So, like I said, we have a challenge ahead of us. We've had a challenge ahead of us. It's not going to stop. We have to move forward. Time waits for no one. Any question?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Spurlock, I do have a few questions. Mr. Evans, could you possibly pull back up the very first slide? I think it was the math TCAP test results. Mr. Spurlock, I need help understanding where you've got, and just looking at the RCS columns, you've got below grade level, and then one column over is what's called approaching grade level.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand from a mathematical standpoint what the difference is?
And I'm going to use it in real simple terms, okay? Very, very simple terms. They're not as low, they're not at the below, but they're right there on the cusp of making the on track.
So is there a parameter, like a percentage parameter or something that defines?
These percentages won't show you a parameter. It's all based on a raw score. Okay, a raw score. Now, Kevin, help me out here. What would the raw score cut be on that separates us from? Yeah. Well, let's just take ELA, for example.
Track, you're looking at, it needs to be around 85% scoring on that assessment, and that's approximate based on what the number of questions are on a test. But on an average, you would say about 85% would be considered on track or higher. Anything from about 71, 72% to 85%, then you're looking at approaching. Anything below that would be considered in the below section. And one of the things that Mr. Spurlock is trying to explain, what's on that list up there, is we're trying to show that we did show, just as the state did, that we had movement, that we moved a lot of students from on track back into the approaching, but they didn't go into the below section at a fast rate.
Right.
They stayed in the approaching. So we didn't have as big as learning loss as maybe what the media has explained in the past. We had some losses, absolutely. Mr. Spurlock did a great job explaining it, but what we're showing here is that loss wasn't as great because we only had students move at a small rate from on track back into the approaching category, and it could have been worse.
And typically that's where we want them in the approaching so that we can move them over. It's an easier move there. There was some slight variance there from 2019, but not as much. And like he said, the biggest difference is it can be different between each test. All right. Now, getting back to one other thing, talking about the demographic part on the last slide. Go back to that last slide, the slides with the demographic. Yeah, there you go. One of the things I will mention to you: the more diversity you have, the more of these indicators that you'll have. You notice that it has all students. It has our black, Hispanic, and Native Americans. And these are all tests. So on some of them, because the amount, in order to make the test valid over time or for a particular time, there has to be at least 30 tests given. Okay, there has to be at least 30 tests given. We don't have any problem with that. I mean, we're very large, and for a system our size, we have diversity, and we're continually being more diverse. Some of your rural counties, they don't have these. So the more, when it gets down to the accountability, the percentage of what goes on what makes up their score is primarily what they have the most of. So just pointing that out to everyone. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Sullivan? Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, I just want to say I appreciate our instructional department. I will be honest with you, and I've said it many times, with the speed in which they provided this accelerated learning this summer, putting it together in a short period of time, I can only imagine what's coming our way when they've had some time to really dig into it. Thank you.
Number 9, that was.
All right, number 9 is the Atmos program memorandum found on agreement found on tab 3. STARS, taking the right stand, will provide master level specialists to work with elementary Atlas students and their parents in effort to reduce chronic absenteeism and improve attendance of students experiencing homelessness. Endure Athletics will provide after-school summer programming, including transportation at no cost to students living in motels and shelters. The Boys and Girls Club will provide summer programming in Smyrna, Murfreesboro at no cost to students who qualify for Atlas program. Because we pay for the summer programming, they also do not charge Atlas students for after-school care during the school year. Motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between STARS, Endure Athletics, and the Boys and Girls Clubs and the Atlas program as presented.
Any questions from the board? All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
I'll second.
Ms. Sharp, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, number 10, Genesis Learning Centers amended contract to delete bus transportation. A renewal of the contract with Genesis Learning Centers for the 2021-2022 school year was approved by the board in July of 2021 under the terms of the prior contract. The school system has requested Genesis no longer provide bus transportation as part of its services. Genesis has agreed to make the change as requested. The Rutherford County School System will provide bus transportation to assist the students. Attached in the tab is a proposed amended and restated contract with Genesis for the 2021-22 school year. The tab is proposed, 2020 school year, deleting bus transportation. The term of the contract remains the same, and the board has the right to renew the contract for 2 additional terms of 1 year. Motion to approve the amended restated contract with Genesis Learning Centers for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Any discussion? All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
I'll second.
Ms. Sharp, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 11.
All right, number 11, IXL Learning, Title I. On tab 2, IXL Learning, Laverne Middle School students and IXL program is used as guided practice to help support and reinforce standard and skills taught in the classroom. The IXL program will also assist teachers in collecting data and help them plan for students' need of remediation and enrichment. Data will provide for student-centered PLC conversation and teacher reflection. The IXL program will be available for all students used in core classes to help move students toward proficiency on our assessments. Details as follows. Annual subscription for the 2021-2022 school year for the IXL site license with unlimited instructor accounts in subject areas of math, ELA, science, and social studies comes to a total of $26,250. Motion to approve the Title I funds to pay for the annual subscription of IXL site license with unlimited instructor accounts. Laverne Middle's Title I school funds will pay 100% of the cost as presented.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 12.
Our number 12 is the approval of the Carl D. Perkins Reserve Grant. Carl D. Perkins Reserve Grant is for competitive grant process, and we were awarded $30,000 from the secondary education work for CTE equipment and $20,000 for student industry certifications for funding period of July 1, 2021 to June 30 of 2022 for a total of $50,000. Just want to add on that, for those listening in, this will help us for some of our students to get industry certifications where we can actually, if they need assistance, we can actually pay for the tests. And kudos to our Career and Technical Education Department. Motion to approve the Carl D. Perkins grant for $50,000 to provide funding for secondary education work for CTE equipment and in student industry certifications for funding period July 1 of 2021 through June the 30th of 2022 as presented.
Any discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 13.
Our number 13, grant for voluntary pre-K program. The voluntary pre-K program grant is used partially to fund our 15 voluntary pre-K programs that are housed in 4 of our elementary schools in 12 classrooms that are located at John Coleman Annex in Smyrna, which is our highest area of need. All classrooms are at capacity of 20 students per class, with more than 90% of the students in the family served qualifying based on household incomes or at or below poverty level. The program is designed to reach Rutherford County's at-risk early learners. The monies afforded to us by this grant ensure that all students have supplies and high-quality materials available to them at all times in our VBK classrooms. As Dr. Sullivan mentioned on Tuesday, we have need, and I asked Dr. Sullivan, you can kind of share this for the audience. How does the state allocate those positions?
We actually have our expert, and I'm going to give her a chance to come on up here. Ms. Hubbard, anytime that we can,
Right.
Jamie, if you want to. Ms. Hubbard is our pre-K specialist, and she pretty much handles every aspect of it, and I can't give her enough credit for everything she does advocating for pre-K. Even if I leave you off email sometimes, I apologize.
It's okay. It's
Personally,
fine.
Jamie.
Mr. Spurlock, will you repeat your question for me?
Yeah, how does the state, I know there's we can't get all that we need and want. How do they allocate that?
So it is based on size and need of the county. So Dr. Sullivan and I have been talking about this really all summer because we started the application process for the school year back in April. And for the first time in probably since I've been in the position, even teaching, so 15 years or so, we've had over 1,000 applications come in. And almost all of them qualify. So it's kind of, or at least 70% of them qualify. So we've been talking about it, trying to figure out how we could get more classrooms, and the state just basically said they don't have any more money for us this year. And then right after I sent like the final email and said, "Are you sure there's no more money?" she immediately replied like, "No, there's no more." And then I guess a fairy came in and gave her some more, because then she sent an email that said, based on waiting list, we are going to allow some. So I talked to her yesterday, and we have 402 right now on our waiting list that qualify, which is actually more than we have in seats. So she said there's a very good chance, not in stone yet, but we could get at least one more this school year based on that need. So we're excited about that. But that's how they do it. You know, Memphis has a ton of them because they're so much bigger, that kind of thing. So
How, is that money generated through federal money?
I think, yeah, it's a trickle-down effect. It starts federal, and then there's just certain things that are out there at the state level, and they kind of push it down from there.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many students are we at now?
We have 300.
300?
240 of them are at John Coleman, and then we have one classroom at Walter Hill, Kittrell, and Eagleville.
We're still around 400 shy.
Yeah.
And this is not a fully funded program like the rest of our classes are. And so kudos to the local taxpayers.
Yes.
For picking up that. This is something that, and quite frankly, we know that poverty doesn't define you.
Mm-hmm.
And these programs like this help these kids.
Absolutely.
And I've been around you enough and seen you doing your job and the VP, the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, y'all do a fabulous job.
Thank you. Thank you. We all love it. All of them are in it because they love it. So it's it just gives the kids a boost at the beginning, head start like they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the acceptance of the volunteer pre-K grant totaling $1,330,481.77 as presented.
All right, any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Sharp. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.
All right, 14, the Public Safety Committee request found on tab 6. Rutherford County Commission's Public Safety Committee is requesting to build 3 11,000 square foot county public health and safety buildings on 3 pieces of property located on the campuses of Rockville Elementary, Christiana Elementary, and Walter Hill Elementary. These buildings would contain 2 fire and 2 ambulance bays with equipment. Each station will contain communication equipment with a new truncated radio system. There would also be a tornado shelter run capable of withstanding F4 tornado. These facilities will be more than a fire station, and they will be a health hub for our community. Motion to approve the building of the public health and safety buildings at Rockville Elementary, Christiana Elementary, and Walter Hill Elementary schools as presented.
Any discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Move to approve. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Have a second? Mr. Estes. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 15.
Title II IDEA contract found on tab 7, Multisensory Education Contract Agreement. The Institute of Multisensory Education will provide a 5-day workshop, comprehensive Orton Gillingham training focused on K2. This training will provide participants with an in-depth understanding of IMSE's Orton Gillingham methodology over the course of 30 hours. Participants will be given tools to incorporate multisensory strategies into existing literacy curriculum and will enable them to better assess, evaluate, and teach children how to read, write, and spell proficiently. The contract details and approximate costs as follows. There will be training on September 21st through 23rd and October 26th through 27th of 2021. The amount is not to exceed $42,830, and it can hold up to 34 participants. The cost will be paid through Title II funds at $30,330 and IDEA funds at $12,500. Recommend motion to approve Title II funds to pay for the 5 days for the teachers as presented.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Braden. Do we have a second? Ms. Maxwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 16.
Number 16, found on tab 8. These are our second readings of policy adoption. We start with 1A, policy 4.406, use of the internet. 1B, policy 4.700, testing programs. 1C, policy 5.200, separation of practices for tenured teachers. 1D, policy 5.201, separation practices for non-tenured teachers. 1E, policy 6.300, code of conduct. 1F, policy 6.306, interference, disruption of school activities. 1G, 6.4081, safe relocation of students. 1H, policy 1.2021, boardsmanship code of conduct. 1I, policy 1.900, charter school authorizing principles. 1J, policy 1.902, charter school agreements. 1K, policy 1.903, charter school oversight. 1L, policy 1.904, charter school intervention. 1M, policy 1.905, charter school renewal. 1N, policy 1.906, charter school revocation. 1O, policy 6.202, homeschools. Motion to approve the above policies on the second, and final reading as presented.
Any questions? And do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
All right, number 2, emergency policy adoption. Pursuant to Board Policy 1.600, these policies are proposed as an emergency policy to be adopted on the first and final reading. 2A, policy 4.212, virtual education program. This is required by state board rule. It establishes the expectation on asynchronous opportunities for students positive with COVID or quarantine due to exposure. 2B, policy 5.3051, emergency quarantine policy. Motion to approve the policies on first and final reading as emergency policies.
Any questions? Okay, do we have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 17.
Financial matters found on tab 9, 2021 Capital Projects Budget Amendment, Fund 177, the installation of a turn pickup lane at Wilson Elementary School. Due to increased enrollment, Wilson Elementary School is currently in need of a dedicated turn lane and pickup lane to accommodate the approximately 75% of the school students that ride in private vehicles to the school each day. The installation of the turn lane on the edge of the school property will enhance safety for our students as well as provide safe turn lane for vehicles that are currently backing up onto Cutoff Road. The cost for this needed school traffic improvement is estimated to be $68,000. Recommend approval to allocate the $68,000 from committed fund balance in 177 to address this needed school traffic improvement at Wilson Elementary School as presented.
All right, any questions? I'm sure this issue could be addressed at a lot of our schools. Just wish we had the money to do it. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, this next one is Capital Projects Budget Amendment in 177. Each July, outstanding purchase orders in Fund 177 are liquidated. The funds are placed in a balance account 34685 and is committed for capital projects. These purchase orders for the projects had to be finished by June 30th. The amendment takes those funds out of 34,685 committed for projects and rebudgets them to expenditures for carryover projects that will be approved, that were approved last year but haven't been completed. This year we have $2,564,032 in funds to rebudget for these carryover projects. Motion to approve the 2021 Capital Projects Budget Fund 177 by reducing the 34685 committed for capital projects by $2,564,032 and increasing the expenditure line item budgets of engineering services account 91300-321 by $12,859 and maintenance and repair service buildings account 91300-335 by $2,451,705 and other equipment found in 91300-790 by $99,469 for a combined total of the same amount that was presented, being $2,564,032.
All right, any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. Second, Ms. Sharp. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, centralized cafeteria.
Yeah, Fund 143, Centralized Cafeteria Fund Budget Amendment. I think we all know that we've been having some issues in keeping employees in this area. Currently, the School Nutrition Department is experiencing hiring issues similar to other food service employers in Rutherford County area. To attract and retain staffing for the school cafeterias, the Nutrition Department Director requests the approval of a one-time hiring and retention initiative that would provide all RCS full and part-time school nutrition employees a one-time recruitment and retention bonus of $500. The payment of this bonus is contingent on all of the following stipulations being met by the school nutrition employee. This would be, number one, the employee must be a current or full part-time RCS nutrition employee or be hired as such no later than September 1 of the current year. Two, the employee cannot have a break in employment with the Rutherford County School Nutrition between September 1 of 2021 and December 18th of 2021. Three, the employee remains on active employee status during this time period and available to duties assigned by the Rutherford County School Nutrition Department unless having an excused absence. Rutherford County School Nutrition employees satisfying these three requirements will receive a $500 recruitment and retention bonus late in December of 2021, less applicable payroll deductions. Funding from this one-time hiring and retention initiative with an estimated cost of $267,293 is fully funded with federal United States Department of Agriculture School Programs Emergency Cost Reimbursement Program Grant Award. Motion to approve the creation and funding of this one-time recruitment and retention school nutrition department bonus as presented to help with providing adequate staffing for our Rutherford County School Nutrition Program with funding provided by federal USDA funds as presented.
All right, any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. Mr. Estes, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, number 18, facilities found on tab 10. This is a request from Buchanan Elementary School to replace existing marquee sign. Principal Ashley Witt has requested permission to replace the existing marquee sign at Buchanan Elementary School with a new LED sign. Funding for this request is $20,039.11 from Wilson Bank and Trust and $4,956.53 from the Buchanan Elementary PTO funds. Total cost of $24,995.64. This request is keeping with recent requests from other schools. Engineering and Instruction has reviewed the request and recommends approval. Ms. Witt, do you know how long that marquee, if you want to come up here and tell us how long that marquee has been there?
The school was built in 1976.
So it's original?
That is the best to my knowledge. I can't find any records that give me anything other than that.
Don't take it.
Problems with it, the storm, not this spring, but spring of 2000, the doors were ripped open and we've lost lots of letters. And the county repaired it then, but it just continues every storm that comes through. It's just really aged.
Good for Wilson Bank and Trust and
We
your
appreciate
PTO.
it. Thank you.
Recommend approval to approve this request to replace the Buchanan Elementary sign through an agreement with Wilson Bank to fund $20,039.11 of this, and the remaining $4,956.53 from Buchanan Elementary School PTO as presented.
Any questions?
I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do we have a second? Okay, we'll do Ms. Maxwell here as a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Sam Davis.
All right, the Sam Davis Home MOA, United States Army Corps of Engineers has overruled the state and is authorizing the removal of the dam. The Corps has a plan of action to remove as many low-head dams as possible to return streams to their natural flow and help with the flooding for some time. They have issued an MOA for review by the Rutherford County staff and Jeff Reed. We have reviewed the MOA after minor revisions and recommended it for approval and signature. A motion to approve the MOA submitted by the United States Army Corps of Engineers as presented.
Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do actually. And I know we've visited this subject so many times over the past board meetings, but is there anyone here present that can walk us through again how the financial aspect of that's going to work? I know there's money involved and where it's going to go and so on and so forth.
Mr. Reed, could you?
Well, let me first address the agreement that's before you, because the agreement before you has nothing to do with the credits whatsoever.
Okay.
So the memorandum of agreement that's before you is one with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the way the agreement reads, it really does nothing but makes us a party to the transaction that the Army Corps of Engineering is entering into with respect to the removal of the dam. And what this agreement says, it just makes the school board a party to that. So in the event there's issues that arise during the removal process, you will have standing to make objections to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers during that process, and then raise that with them and give you a voice with respect to the removal process should any issues arise during the removal process. The agreement itself does not even say that the Board of Education is consenting to the removal. So it's just making a party to the deal. So if something is developed in the process of the removal of the dam, then we, the board, would have standing to make an action with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and then can raise it with them and go through the appeal process with them. So that's what this agreement does. So that's what's before you now. With respect to the credit issue, it's not really has anything to do with this agreement that's before you. There are certain credits that may be available with respect to the Sam Davis Foundation and so forth from the removal of the dam, can be utilized towards the cost of having it removed. And at the end of the day, if there is money left over from that, the board has said they would share those with us. If there are any monies left over at the end of the day for those credits, it will be years to know whether or not there's any credits left over the way those mitigation credits work. So it will not be a short-term immediate funding of any sort to anybody. So the way those credits work, there is if indeed everyone honors the agreement and does what they're supposed to do with respect to the mitigation of the dam and the damage, if any, occurs to erosion along the streams, then years down the road, there will be potentially credits available that could be sold off at that point. And to the extent someone buys those credits, that will be the amount of money that could be split between the foundation and the Board of Education. So this agreement here does not even address that whole aspect of the split on those credits. So this agreement only deals with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Board of Education's right to have basically a say-so in that process with respect to the dam removal.
Okay, I appreciate your explaining that, because that, I think that's pretty huge what you just said. So I want to make sure I clearly understand that if we approve this MOA tonight, we are not in any way, shape, or form approving the actual removal of the dam.
No.
We're just simply agreeing to attach ourselves in the event that that happens.
We're making ourselves to the
Correct.
party to the agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, so if the issues arise during the process of dam removal, we have standing to raise an objection with that with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay. So what will be the process, and who will actually make the decision whether or not the dam does get removed?
The Sam Davis Home Foundation in conjunction with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
So even though the school board's going to attach itself as a party through the MOA, we won't have a vote at all in whether or not the dam gets removed?
This does not approve the removal of the dam. That's between the Sam Davis Foundation and the Army Corps of Engineers. So this only makes us a party to have a right to, if there's something comes up in the process that affects our property negatively or somehow has some ill effect to our property at the Smyrna Elementary, we can raise an objection to the Army Corps of Engineers and then go through the appeal process with the Army Corps of Engineers to have that addressed.
Thank you.
So what I'm understanding is if they do tear down the dam and for some reason the pipes that they put in there floods the property of our elementary school, then that gives us standing to go back to them and make
We would
sure
go back, have standing then to go back to the Army Corps of Engineers, raise that as an issue to seek redress at that point, or to ask them to do something different than what they're doing.
So this is giving us standing.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 19, insurance update.
No changes from the workshop the other night. I'll be getting an email out to those on the ad hoc committee to set a date just to review the RFQ for a professional consultant to come and do the comparison between the state and the county as requested by this board.
Thank you, Doug. Director's update.
Just a couple of things. There was a question asked tonight about free and reduced lunch up to this point. I think we're sitting around 41%. I didn't check by the day. That's a little bit above where we were at this same time last year. I think we ended the year at 42.5 or something like that. As far as enrollment, and one of the things, I think we're really cleaning this thing up very quickly, but we're still sitting at about 48,300 kids with our kindergarten coming in today. So we can anticipate this to fluctuate. Generally speaking, in a typical year, you would grow between the beginning of the first week of school and to Labor Day. You could probably add up to, anywhere from 300 to 500 kids, maybe more.
Mr. Spurlock, question on that. I know it was mentioned in our work session Tuesday night about duplicates.
Right.
How does that work, and normally when will we see the duplicates fall off completely?
That's a good question. We actually already started that. What it is when a kid may transfer from one school to another, move or something, and his name is already in one D-base, now it's in another D-base. They work collectively with our attendance department here to check that. Now, our next big purge will come when we start looking for our no-shows. And keep in mind, I think Dr. Sullivan mentioned it very well yesterday, Tuesday at the work session. Sometimes those no-shows will show up 3-4 weeks after school started, because our attendance department starts looking for them. Because we do have that, that guidance for us to look for truancy and things of that nature. So, like I said, it typically on a normal year, we could add an additional 400 to 500 kids.
Even with getting rid of the duplicates?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, 21, TLN. Ms. Brett.
Yes, I heard back from Shane Reeves and Don White today. I asked them about this possible special called session with the legislature, and they both have said they're asking for clarity on exactly what is going to be done and what is hoped to be accomplished. So at this point, they really don't know exactly where they're headed.
All right. Will that be it? Okay. All right, 23, general discussion.
If I may, Mr. Young, Laverne Middle had wasn't quite a farmer's market, but it was the parents' market, 10 to 2 this last Saturday, and what it was the parents whose children attend that school. They were able to bring their wares out. There was books, there was food, and it was a huge, huge community thing. And I don't know how Dr. Holman does it, but he's phenomenal, and his buy-in from the parents and getting the community involved and all the students out there is just, it's immeasurable. The cafeteria, the new cafeteria looks great, and everybody's excited about the annex whenever we get it open, but just wanted to tell everybody, shout out to Laverne Middle. I was out at Laverne High School too. Some of the volleyball players had car washes over the weekend, and there's a lot going on up at the north end.
Great news. Anything else?
Well, I wanted to talk on just something we touched on at the work session about maybe getting the county commission come out and look at one of our two older schools other than Central Magnet, Riverdale and Oakland, and think about a likely addition out there. It's not a new school, but anytime you can, bring, potentially 200 extra students to both of those schools, that can help us going forward. So I would like to see us move on that and get something going in that area. And I just want to invite everyone to come out tomorrow night if you want to. Riverdale is going to have a field house opening up, and we're going to name it after my principal back in the day, and he was also one of our wonderful school superintendents, Hewlin Watson. And so I invite everyone to come out at 7:30 tomorrow after the scrimmage at Riverdale High School, and it's going to be a great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to, we had an opportunity to participate in a ribbon cutting, many of us board members at Oakland High School for a robot that was donated by Nissan. I want to say what a spectacular program that is, to see the students, the juniors who were there from the programs that we offer our kids, and to see our students return and have gone to work for Nissan or other industry in our community. I think it's a spectacular opportunity. And it was an honor to be there among those. Mr. Spurlock knows far more about this than I do, but it was just a wonderful opportunity to see what is actually happening in real time with our kids in these CTE programs.
You reminded me of something. I don't know how I forgot this, but I've been told that the governor is aware of this, and he's perhaps planning a trip sometime this fall.
That would be wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, that Carl Perkins grant is very valuable to us, and it really helps us build these programs, and we just need to continue to support that.
And I want to add, we are looking at about 1,000 industry certifications that were acquired during a year like we had last year by our students. And it's like that parable, you feed a man a fish and they eat for a day, but you teach them how to fish and they eat for a lifetime. The skill sets of some of these students are acquiring are phenomenal. I know you met, Ms. Johnson, you met some of those alumnus from that mechatronics program, and it was fascinating, the things that they were doing.
It's wonderful. And to see the different industries. Siobhan Cosmetics actually comes and visits our schools and programs to recruit. And these students are making a very handsome living when they leave our schools. So it's a great opportunity.
Yes,
very
ma'am.
impressed.
I spoke with Mr. Young about, at the ribbon cutting, about perhaps doing a night school, and maybe that could generate some revenue, because TCAT has nothing like that. There's no other way for anyone to get that.
Yeah, it is.
We've worked with, we've had some of that. Schwann had partnered with us in that endeavor, but that's something we can expand.
There's plenty of opportunities for sure. All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned.